Hi, my name is Matt Kosterman. I'm a 56-year-old white guy living in Chicago, Illinois. For the first 50 plus years of my life, I didn't think I was allowed to be here. Not just here in Chicago, but here, on Earth, in a body. I suffered from depression for most of my life. I smoked my first joint at age 11 and had my first drink of Southern Comfort straight from the bottle at age 13. While the cannabis never really took hold as an addiction, I drank alcohol for the next 20 years, many times to excess. In 1998, I began psychotherapy, and in the year 2000, I started on antidepressants. I spent 12 years on them and 15 years in traditional talk therapy. Meanwhile, I built a successful business, became a father to 2 amazing girls, and rehabbed an old house in a nice suburb. I did all the things. In 2010, I went through divorce, foreclosure, and bankruptcy. Fun times. After much flailing about, I got my head on straight in 2015, only to begin experiencing severe chronic pelvic pain along with fibromyalgia. I spent nearly 3 years in the Western medical system trying desperately to heal. In 2018, out of money and out of patience, my healing journey really kicked into gear after my first magic mushroom trip. The years since have been an amazing and challenging ride. I've traversed the physical and not-so-physical worlds and been fortunate to work with many, many talented healers. As a result of all my efforts, I now find myself in a place of receiving, contentment, and prosperity, the likes of which had eluded me for most of my life. There's a man named Daryl Anka who channels a being called Bashar. Bashar describes the process of engaging with a healer, that of giving yourself what is essentially a permission slip to move towards wholeness, healing, and right relationship. This podcast is an effort to share some of what I've learned and introduce you to some of the people and ways that literally gave me what feels like my permission slip for existence. It's also an effort to continue to spread the word that the traditional Western medical system, while effective for a great many things, is not necessarily the be-all, end-all solution to every health problem, especially when the problem may be more spiritual than it is physical, as it was in my case. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoy it. Please like, subscribe, and do all the social media things that help spread the word. Share these links with people directly in your community. It is my sincere hope that you and others will benefit from my experiences. Hi, this is Matt Kosterman, and welcome back to the Permission Slip. Thanks for joining us. I am here today with Paul Selig, who is a medium, a channel, and an energy healer, and he's coming to us from Maui, Hawaii. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I was trying to think of an appropriate analogy, and it's a bit like, for me, probably a 14-year-old girl meeting Taylor Swift and having Taylor on her podcast. So thank you. This is great. For those of you who are just tuning in, this podcast is, so far anyway, this will be about, I think, the 18th episode, and it's all people that I have worked with and run into in my own healing journey. So I discovered Paul and his work during COVID, and I like to think of it as a triple crown. I had done plant medicine, psychedelics, myofascial unwinding, and I was still pretty stuck. And then I found the spiritual side of things through Paul and his guides. So thanks. So Paul, why don't you just tell folks a little bit about your personal story and how you came into this? Because I know you didn't go to college for this stuff.
No, I didn't. I didn't necessarily. I wasn't a non-believer, but I wasn't anything that I thought I would end up doing. I think I read half of the Seth book when I was a grad student and drunk most of the time. I thought it was really interesting, quite interesting actually, but I didn't finish the book. But I think it had an impact on me. I was 25. I was about less than a year out of Yale. I was having this ostensibly hot career that was blooming quickly, and a list of things that I thought I had to achieve in the world to make me okay. I got the whole list. I wasn't okay.
Yeah.
I was in trouble, and I kind of knew it enough. And I began praying for the first time in my life. I was in a hotel in St. Paul or Minneapolis, and the Gideons leave little Bibles in hotel drawers, and I guess the TV didn't work or something, but it said prayer for people in crisis, and I just gave it a shot. And 3 days later, I heard a voice telling me to get my act together and what to do.
Yeah.
I listened to it. And
was it a different voice than what was the normal one?
Well, it's, when I hear, I don't know that I would call this channeling at the time, but it was a voice that blocked out a thought. We'll call it a thought that blocked out all other thoughts that had an irrefutable ring of truth. I just couldn't deny what I was hearing. And so I listened. And that really was it. And there are different kinds of clairaudience. I understand that some people hear a voice in the room, like, oh, there's somebody behind the dresser. That's not it. It's always been more telepathic. And it always comes with a resonance that is unlike my own thought, my own vocabulary. And it's a very different texture and clarity that comes with it when I channel. But it was the very beginning, and I wasn't channeling at that time, and nor would I have even thought of myself as particularly psychic. I had an experience a few months after that where I ended up it was an energetic experience. People said it sounded like a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. I just may have been hyperventilating. I may never know what it was.
Yeah, right.
But it was an experience of energy moving through my body and now through the top of my head. And I was on a roof trying to teach myself to meditate right the morning before this thing called the harmonic convergence. I'd been told people were going to be waking up, and I thought, well, if there is a God or something like a God, and I was beginning to think that there might be, and you asked to be woken up, why would it want to say no? I didn't have a lot of baggage at that time.
Yeah. So
I had this experience. I started seeing little lights around people. So I'd felt energy. I was seeing lights around people. I'd heard a voice. So my life was getting sort of turned, and I was newly sober. Okay. And I was newly sober at really the pinnacle, or what I seemed at the time, of the AIDS epidemic, and everybody was dying around me. I was fresh out of school. I didn't have any money. I was such a mess. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it may have been a perfect storm for what I ended up undergoing, which was a real process of coming into something. The psychic ability that showed up in increments. I still wouldn't have thought of myself as psychic, but I studied a form of energy healing to get a context for what I was beginning to feel and see. And I was volunteering at a center for people that were living with life-challenging illness in Manhattan. It's called the Manhattan Center for Living. And I found that when I had my hands on people's bodies, I began to hear things for them. So if I had my hand on your chest, I heard the name Jerome. I'd say, who's Jerome? And you'd say, my father, my lover, my kid, my dog.
Somebody.
Yeah, and all this energy would get confirmed. And I started to feel what was going on in other people's bodies and my own. And so I was developing as a clairsentient and a clairaudient without even really knowing what those things were. And I started a group that met in my apartment. And it met there on and off, mostly on for 18 years. I took a 2-year hiatus. And I don't remember when it was. Maybe about 5 years into it. And I went, this is all just too strange. I can't be doing
it was it was too much. But people would come and they'd throw $10 in a can, I think you said.
That was it, yeah. I wasn't looking to be known for this work at all. I was teaching. I was a college teacher. At that time, I was on the faculty at NYU and Goddard College in Vermont. I ended up being at NYU for 25 years and running the creative writing program at Goddard for about 18 of those years. But I wasn't looking to be seen or known. I didn't really think about, there wasn't something called a spiritual market. I mean, when I started doing this, I didn't have the internet, it was a very different time. And it wasn't in the zeitgeist of public vocabulary. So I studied a form of energy healing with this old Irish lady who was one of the first 13 Reiki masters in the US, although she was doing her own work when I met her, which was extraordinary in its own way. But it was at a time where these things were sort of under the radar.
Yeah.
You had to know somebody. There was no place to advertise. You'd hear and you'd go. And it wasn't so much that it was underground. It just wasn't, there was not a lot of information to be had. So this was where I was developing. And this group went on until when I was 48, I was a heavy smoker. My psychic stuff kicked in first when I quit drinking. My guide said, at age 48, we'd like to keep working with you, but we can't unless you deal with this. And I ended up quitting smoking the next day.
You said you were 3 packs a day.
I was 4 packs a day.
4 packs a day. Yeah.
Easy 4 packs a day. And I loved every cigarette I ever smoked. Like I was great. I loved it. It kept me away from everybody. It was just the way I liked it. I had a nice cloud around me all the time. My neighbors would complain. Oh, it was awful, but I loved it. But when I quit, that's when my abilities kicked in at a whole other level.
Yeah, that's
the guys began to lecture through me. And shortly thereafter, they began dictating books. The moment I became willing to record and transcribe the recordings. And after a couple of months of my doing that, they said, we have a book to write, and if you take 2 weeks, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And they've now delivered...
This is 14 coming
13
right?
is coming out. I think this is book 13 coming out now, okay. And book 14 was dictated last summer, so that hopefully will be out next year. But there's a book coming out next month that was delivered summer before last.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in Boone for the final for the closing of that.
Yeah,
that book was great.
I'm doing the audiobook right now of the book that's coming out next, and I'm pretty astonished by it. It's a really good book. This is like so. You know, I have a friend that says, "I know it's not you because the books are much smarter than you'll ever be." So initially it was you were reading for others, and this was and then when you stopped smoking, they began lecturing or no? I wasn't reading for others. I wasn't doing psychic work in those days. I mean, once in a while somebody would say, "Can I come and talk to your guides?" All of my abilities kicked in at 48, more fully. I'm still developing.
Sure.
Really, but when I was hearing clairaudiently or channeling, I was much more interested in the energy that was coming through when I worked than the information.
Yeah.
Somebody called me a healing medium, and my training was as a healer, so I was serving as a conduit for this energy. Mm-hmm. And these guides were bringing through these things that they called attunements to support people in aligning to the energy. But there was very, very little context. It was just instructions. It was like receiving coordinates on a map.
Okay.
Like go to Highway 41 and, exit 12. Yeah. And something's going to happen. It was a little like that in a strange way.
Oh, interesting.
And, but we could feel the energy, and I was interested in the energy. I was not interested in what was coming out of my mouth, because it was like, who the hell am I? The energy was irrefutable because we could all feel it.
Yeah, and that was
the reason I did the group, because I got to feel the energy and it proved the whole thing out. And I was always a bit of a skeptic, but this I couldn't get past. So, now there's all these books, and I quit my academic jobs. That's about 10 years ago exactly, I think.
Okay.
I left academia and began to do this work full time. I was doing it, I was traveling with it before I quit academia. And it was time. It was time to say, okay, I'll see if this can be my life. It's hard when you're in your 50s to walk away from work that you've had forever and benefits and retirement. But I felt called to, and I did, and I'm glad I did.
And initially, you didn't even want anybody to know what you did. It was all sort of underground.
I got a website. Yeah, I got a website. I think before the first book was dictated, because I'd begun doing readings and I was in demand to do readings. And the website did not have my name or my photograph on it. You had to know somebody to get the link.
Okay.
And I only got the website initially to be able to process credit card payments, for people that were out of New York City.
Yeah.
That was it. I wasn't, again, and when I got my photograph up there and my name up there, I was a little shaken by it. It was like, I don't know, but I want to be known. Mm-hmm. And some of it was just fear, and I was trying to preserve my academic life. At NYU, I didn't talk about it. All the kids all found out the moment the book started to come. They were all Googling me and surprised that I wasn't talking about it, but I kept it pretty separate. Goddard, which was an old hippie school in Vermont, knew that I'd do this. My boss, when I started there, when she found out I was doing energy healing groups before it was channeling, or thought it was channeling, she said, "Why aren't you doing this here?" And I said, "Are you out of your mind?" She said, No, this is Goddard College. You don't leave any parts of yourself behind. It was extraordinary. And I credit that time at Goddard, which is sadly closed. They closed their doors about a year ago, for giving me, in some ways, permission to step out of my comfort zone. It was Goddard and it was the Esalen Institute, which is where I first channeled publicly before some scientists and scholars and, writers. Was really outside of my apartment in Goddard College, only the first place I channeled publicly.
Yeah.
And I had just completed the manuscript for I Am the Word. It had just been typed.
Okay.
And copied at Kinko's the night before I went there, pretty much. And I brought it with me in my suitcase. And the editor from Archer Penguin happened to be there, took the manuscript back with him on the plane. And it was on the shelf 10 months later in bookstores. It was never even submitted. So the books have had their own life, and I'm grateful for that. This work has had its own life. My job has been to show up, and that's what I do. I was not extraordinarily ambitious about this. Yeah. But I show up where I'm asked, and I get asked a lot, so I just kept showing up. It's still, I do this so that I can sit in the energy and be part of the phenomena, which I may never understand.
Yeah. And what's been your personal just healing journey through it? So you gave up drinking initially and smoking and...
Drinking, smoking. I mean, I don't know. Everything's changed. There are places that stick. Mm. I'm living a very, very, very different life than I would ever have imagined. You can put it that way. I'm, 100 pounds lighter than I was, or maybe 80 pounds. I think I put back on 20. I am a much better friend. I am less self-centered than I was. Mm-hmm. I have to say this though, I don't consider myself enlightened. Mm-hmm. I'm not a guru. I have no real aspirations. I want to, live the life that I have left, hopefully in a peaceful way. But that doesn't mean that I still don't bump up against my stuff, and I do. Yeah. And I see it now, though, as opportunity, not punishment, or not, why isn't it working out for me? I see, well, here's another layer that's ready to move. So, it's almost too vast a question. I think I lived in a kind of, I'm not saying depression, but, I had been a talented writer when I was young. I was quite talented. Then when I stopped drinking, I couldn't write. I just thought I couldn't write, but mostly that was my experience. It was devastating for me.
You were stuck with the writing.
I was stuck, and I was shamed. I felt terribly ashamed that I hadn't lived up to this great potential that I thought that I had, or somebody said I had, or, and I used that. And I was sharing a master's in writing program, teaching it. And it's not that I wasn't writing, I was, but mostly as a gun for hire, missions. I do, rewrites of Broadway-bound shows that needed work, things like that, But my own work, I didn't know. I was horrified by the prospect of doing it. And the irony that all of these books have come through me, spoken, not written, spoken, that don't require any editing at all.
Nothing, yeah. Little.
3 words in a manuscript, maybe, that I mispronounce would be average, I think. Yeah. And now, maybe in the beginning it was more. I used to type the initial manuscripts, and I'm so glad I don't now, because I'm sure I was not, and I worked very, very hard to be concise, but I got so tired of hearing my own voice, I can't tell you. Now, I don't even read the books until I do the audiobook. Okay. The time I read the book is when I sit down to record it.
To record the audiobook.
Just too much for me. So anyway, there's a great irony there that I have been so extraordinarily prolific as a stenographer for these guides, and my name is on the cover, but I didn't write the book. Yeah. So when people say, I love your books, I mean, I suppose it's a little bit more like being a surrogate parent. It's come through me, but I carried it. I feel like a collaborator in that my vocabulary is used. I interrupt. I have questions. The guides take the questions.
Sometimes.
Most of the time they take the questions. Yeah. Sometimes they shut me up. And I actually like it when they shut me up, because it reminds me that they're in charge, and that's what I prefer. Yeah. So, that's it. But now I'm doing my own writing again. So this is a full circle thing. Okay. That part of me is being reclaimed. Or we'll see if it continues, but that has been my experience in the last year or so.
Well, I mean, I wonder, ultimately, when we as humans are creating something, I guess I have a question of who's really doing the creating, right? Like it's all, I know I've gotten into the flow on things before, and I don't feel like I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's being done.
Well, that's inspiration. I use the term channeling in a very specific way, and other people are far more embracing to anything that can sort of be folded under the umbrella of inspiration. The difference, I suspect, is that because I like it when I'm inspired as a writer, I love it. It's like channeling in a lot of ways. I mean, it flows, it's exciting. However, I still have to go back and craft it.
Okay.
There's still my work to be done as a craftsperson. When I channel, I don't know the title of the chapter. The last book, I didn't know the title of the book until halfway through. I was going crazy. I finally said, well, you can call it this, or this. We would like this, and we'll see now what the publisher wants to say about it. I don't know about that.
Sure. No, that's a great point. That you're then crafting it. But in this case, it's just straight, no editing. Boom. Here you go.
Straight. It's my thing. I've met people that say, "Oh, I hired an editor to work on my channel book," and my first impulse is to say, "It's not your book. It's not your book to do that with."
Yeah.
But I don't knock inspiration. It's the best. Channeling is distinct, and when people say they want to be a channel, I kind of go, why? It's not really ever gotten me a date that I can remember. It's an odd thing. It is a little bit like being a radio. And the radio is not the broadcast. The radio carries the broadcast.
Sure.
And, if you want to think of the court stenographer who sits there before the judge and just types away, they become somewhat invisible.
Yeah.
And I'm more visible than I was when I was first working. I would say, "Hello, my name is Paul," and that was it. The guys would come through, and at the end I would say, "Thank you, nice to meet you, goodbye," and be out the door because I was shy and nervous, and this was all so strange. And I'm far more present now, and I enjoy that, just like I enjoyed being in a classroom at NYU in front of my college kids. I loved them dearly. I had a great 25 years. I enjoyed that work tremendously. And I enjoy this work too, but in a very different way.
Yeah. And I've just noticed in the 5 years that you have become more open and,
I'm happier
in front of the group.
It's really true.
Yeah.
It's really true. It's a thing.
And who are the guides? They call themselves Melchizedek?
Melchizedek is the name I've given. I had a mentor early on who said this is who I was channeling, and I broke with her, and I used to hate that she told me that. The first name that I heard was the priest.
Okay.
And then I think I heard the high priest. And Melchizedek, historically was the high priest of Jerusalem, so there's some, balance. I call them the guides because my ex from 25 years ago, whenever it was, when he found out I could do this, would say, "Ask the guides this, ask the guides that." So it was easy, and I liked it because it was simple, and it didn't carry baggage.
Yeah, the weight
the weight and the ego, and when I hear "I am the channel for Metatron," I am the channel. So the I is what becomes important, and I don't think that's what channeling is about, personally. But that's just my thing, and I don't want to discredit or discount anybody else because I think that stage of it being special and feeling special is probably something that we all go through. I had to get over that in order to do the work.
Yeah.
Be present for the work.
Be present. It's interesting. I had to get over a lot of cynicism as I was reading, I Am the Word, and I'm looking and I'm on your live streams, and I'm going, how many people do you got on there? Always charging money for this, and and always written these books, and then I just I had to, there was literally a conscious effort. I said, you know what, Kosterman? I said, what you've been doing ain't working. So why don't you just test out not being cynical about it, and just test it out, and everything changed.
Well, that's nice to hear, and I'm glad that happened for you. I don't know that I'm cynical. I can be skeptical still. I may never understand what it is that I do and how it happens. I wish I did. I don't. And maybe I don't want to. Maybe it's perfect the way it is right now.
Yeah.
I don't think about being a channel when I'm feeding the dogs or the cats. You're
Paul.
Other stuff. Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
But when I work, I'm in that alignment, and the radio that I am is tuned to a very specific station. When I'm channeling, it's the guides that I'm tuning into. When I work psychically, the person I'm reading is the station that I'm tuned into, which is a different skill set.
Different skill set.
And I go back and forth between the two often, and I do when I work with people individually or in my workshops when people ask personal questions. The guides, I don't think that I work with care so much if we get the promotion at work or the marriage lasts or what people are asking about, but they may care about how we treat ourselves and other people and give us instruction about growth and where in their own way.
Yeah, and so to that end, what is what is their message about what's the biggest problem that humanity is facing? What are we going through right now? Because clearly this is different times.
Yeah, well, they've said the only real problem humanity faces is the denial of the divine. That's it. And that plays itself out as separation. The separation between ourselves and source, and our separation between ourselves and our neighbors, and the need for separation as it plays out in terms of, politics and borders and all of these things. I mean, this is our creation. We're responsible for this stuff.
Yeah.
The guide said in the very first book, which was called I Am the Word, which was channeled in 2009, published in 2010, they said, humanity is at a time of reckoning, and a reckoning is a facing of the self and all of one's creations. They meant personally and collectively. And everything that's been created in fear is going to need to be recreated or reknown in a higher way. And in some ways, that has always been the teaching of how to move through this and how to they talk about octaves, and they say, reality as we know it is an octave of vibration with its highs and lows. They don't talk so much about good and evil, but they do talk about high and low ends of the scale. Evil, the intention to do harm. And they talk about how anything that is played in the low octave can be transposed musically, tonally, to be played in a higher octave. And that when we do that, things change. And the work that they do with their students is that work of transpositions energetically, and that they say that energetic shift claims itself as manifest as the world we experience ourselves in.
Just like
so much the teaching of what?
Like a G note. I mean, how many G notes do you have on a piano?
Kind of like that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. So I can accept it as such. They seem to know what they're talking about. God knows they're consistent. I heard this, maybe it was at the Rich Boone retreat last summer, the one you were at. I think somebody said that they had put all of the books into ChatGPT and asked what the inconsistencies were, and there were none, which I thought was kind of amazing. And 13 books that had, 12 were out at the time, that hadn't been written.
Fascinating, yeah.
And I hope so. I don't hear that. I hear them making certain concepts more accessible in different ways once they find out how we're receptive to them,
how it's
and how they alter language to make it.
Yeah. They also talked. They talked in Boone about AI, about artificial intelligence. I thought that was very, very interesting, to not make it a totem, a god.
Yeah, they've talked about it a little bit. I mean, it's most things about science. It's just it may be like I've never read physics. I'm told by physicists who looked at the work, and this is all quantum physics is what they're describing when they talk about entrainment and vibrational accord and all those things. Fine if it is. I just don't have the vocabulary for that. So occasionally I'll be surprised when people ask a question about something scientific and they're willing to answer it. My resistance to answering that perhaps is my own.
Sure.
But, they decide for themselves what they want to talk about. That's not really up to me.
And the fear, I would say, it seems that it expresses often as judgment. I mean, judgment is we're putting ourselves, making ourselves God, essentially, right? When we're judging another.
Yeah. They say, what you judge, you fear. They say self-righteousness, which I guess you could look at as judgment, is always the small self meaning personality structure. They're not denigrating the personality, but it's not the part of you that is higher and more developed and knows, realizes truth. We live in a time where people are saying, my truth is, mine. That's fine. But the guides have been known to say is, truth is truth. It's actually, whatever is true is always true. Your opinions change.
Yeah.
It was true for everybody at a period of time that the world was flat. We all bought into that. Or that a human being couldn't fly in the air. We're past that.
You're right.
So, what is true is always true. And what they're saying is always true is the aspect of each of us that is already in union with Source, knows itself as of Source. Mm-hmm. And that's the aspect of us that lives in the next octave up. And that is what they are lifting us to realize in their instruction.
To exist as that octave in this plane of existence. That's
how I understand it.
Yeah, the other powerful teaching for me was what you damn or who you damn damns you back, because I had been estranged from my family for years and, basically thought they were ruining my life, that my parents, kind of birthed me so they could ruin my life. That was my point of view. And letting go of that.
It's a good teaching. Yeah, it's a good teaching. They say, who you put in darkness calls you to that darkness, or what you damn damns you back. Yeah. And that's really a teaching of vibrational accord. That doesn't mean that you have to approve of somebody's, behavior or what they have done. You don't have to. You're not sanctioning it, but you are understanding. It was in the Book of Mastery, which is, I think, the third book they wrote. And they said, or maybe it was like the fourth or something. They said, imagine you're walking up a mountain and there's a cave. And you walk into the cave, and in that cave is the one person you never want to see again for as long as you live. And your job is to escort that person out of the cave. Mm-hmm. And you do that because they called you to the darkness. And now you have to you let them out. You're freeing yourself, and you're letting them be themselves. You're no longer damning them, and consequently working at that level of vibrational accord.
Yeah.
So they say, the New Agers and people like to think about manifestation as getting something. How am I going to manifest this, man? And what I think we all miss is that our lives, everything we see around us personally and collectively, we are in vibrational accord with. Mm-hmm. It's not just what you want. That's one way to look at it, but it's a very, very small window. So whatever I am in accord with, and they say ACCORD or ACHORD is on a piano, in co-resonance with, is my reality. Mm-hmm. And when we lift it higher, or we unburden ourselves of the things that entrench us and bind us and claim us again and again and again to the lower, we begin to have a different experience. And then everything is altered. The guides talk about, one of their claims is, behold, I make all things new, which they say is the divine self claiming itself in manifestation.
Because we're manifesting all the time. I mean, we're constantly
all the time.
Manifesting isn't, like you said, just I want a new car. It's every instant you're manifesting this reality.
Exactly right.
Yeah. I know I asked them a question at one of the workshops, I think in Berkeley. I said, because they're describing that we're moving to this higher level, this higher octave. I said, this sounds a lot like what the Renaissance was, however many, my history's bad, 100 years ago. And they said, yes, very much so, that it's going to be a new way of experiencing ourselves. And that has been consistent in the teachings.
I think so, I went to Florence for the first time last summer with a friend, because I was touring in Europe and I had a few days off. I'd never been there, but I don't do a lot of past life stuff at all, but one of the only lives I know details about was at that time, and it was
okay.
Yeah, okay. It was a bit of a trip. Well, it was good when I was in my early 30s, maybe 32, 33, and I was doing a lot of clearing at that time, and a lot of meditating, a lot of energy work. I was very devoted. And I was summoned to jury duty, and I was so proud to be called to jury duty. I thought, the moment I walked into the court, I was falling apart. I was a train wreck. And I'd go home saying, I'm not the one on trial. What is this about? Mm-hmm. Started hearing a name, and then I heard look it up.
Okay.
And I found this is pre-internet, so I couldn't just do it in a second. I actually had an old occult encyclopedia in my house. It was the only thing to look something up, and I found the name, and it was a writer from that time who'd been before the Inquisition. And I went, okay, well, that makes some sense. And then years later, and I had a dream, which I didn't even relate to that, of these two guys getting arrested and, in like by palace guards kind of thing. And the guy, by these men with armor, and there was a guy with a great big hood and a big nose, a monk, and this sort of dandy guy with a big collar, which in retrospect, I didn't know this until last year. It was like, he looked like he was dressed for the Inquisition himself. But anyway, I got on the internet eventually. I looked up the name, and there was everybody's picture from that dream. And I went, whoa, here we go.
Yeah.
Whoa. It's really from, so that's my Renaissance story, and I'll leave it at that. But it was really interesting because I got to see where that person was buried.
Oh, cool. Very
really
cool.
Kind of remarkable for me, yeah.
Yeah, well, because my understanding is basically everything that has ever happened is recorded in the quantum field, in the Akashic. It's all out there. So you actually had to sit, you were called to sit on the jury. It wasn't just waiting around all day to find out that you weren't there.
It was during voir dire when that's when I began to melt down, yeah. And then I was called on the jury, which was horrifying to me. And it was a stupid civil case. Some guy seemed to be faking. It was like he was a bad back trying to get insurance, but people were seeing him bowling and, jumping up and down on the trampoline. And, I actually had to go teach in Vermont at Goddard, so I didn't stay for the end of the trial. And I was never happier to get off of that thing. And now when I get called, it's been a few years. I don't want to curse it because I've not been called in the state of Hawaii yet where I live. But in New York, when they would say, what do you do for a living? I'd say, well, I'm a teacher and a psychic. Out the door. You have to put up with everybody in the room laughing at you.
But you get
100 people laughing at you in court, but you're out.
But you're out. Yeah. I love that. I had a question about the guides, the instruction has been about presence and being, right? Mm-hmm. And not doing so much about presence and being. And I know early on when I started found the work, and I would do the attunements daily, and I would do them as I walked. And so there was a doingness that has led to a beingness, I guess I would say.
It's not, I won't say it's a passive teaching.
Right.
We have choice and we're invited to act. When you're operating from your knowing and you know that it's time to go pick out the garbage, or you know that it's time to end the relationship, when you're in your knowing, those are actions that are taken. They talk about presence and being as moving to a level of alignment or energetic accord where you're in a kind of flow, but that doesn't mean you won't be called to act. Mm-hmm. I read for people over the years, and they'd say things like, well, I'm about to be evicted from my house. I haven't paid the rent in 2 months, but I know Spirit is going to take care of me. And I say, I'm not cheap. These readings are expensive, and I'm giving you your money back. Please put it towards your rent. That's your priority. I really, if I don't take out the garbage, it's going to start stinking in here. Right. I've got a new dog in the house. I'm having to train her to.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
But it was raining really hard. I live in the rainforest. It was raining really hard last night. She was not going to go out. I'm like, okay, we have another hurdle. But it's my job to do this with her.
Right.
I don't think she's going to figure it out entirely on her own, although she's pretty smart.
Yeah.
So.
Spirit's not going to do it for her.
My job.
Your job, right? And I think there's another teaching around like discernment and crossing the street, and you don't just walk across the street thinking that you're going to be taken care of.
Well, when I use the crossing the street example myself about choice, and people say, well, your guides, tell you what to do. And for the most part, my experience has been if I ask, I might get support in the moment. Like if I want to walk into traffic, mm-hmm. I have free will and I can do that. If I say, is this a good time to cross the street? I might hear not wise, which means you can do it, but you're not going to like the ramifications of the choice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When I'm counseled at this level in my daily life, it is generally in the moment. Okay. I don't say, is this a good time to or where am I going to be in 5 years? Tell me. That's just not how I roll anymore.
Yeah.
And how this has ever been. I think they told me early, before any of the books came, when I was the most blocked and miserable about writing, I think I was meditating and I said, and I'm not a good meditator, but I remember asking, am I ever going to write a book? And I heard some astonishingly high number.
Oh.
Like 24, something like 18, 24.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Because I was already probably, pushing 50 or something. It was like, well, there's not time to do that. It was crazy.
Right. And I can't even
But
get paid.
I did get it.
Yeah.
I did get it. And I found automatic writing from that period as well. Years later, and I was shocked. And it said, I'm writing a book that requires no editing and, that will be widely read. It was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't buy it. I had a buddy from my old Goddard days, a very good psychic named Silas Satterstrom, who was all a writer, novelist, and a root worker. She came from a family of root workers in the South and was good with divination.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trading readings at an academic residency. And I just wanted to know, am I ever going to have a relationship? And am my job secure?
Yeah.
I cared about. And she's going, there's a book. Everybody's so excited. It's all about the Christ. Everybody's a Southern woman. Everybody's so excited about this book. You're writing a book. I thought she was out of her mind.
Sure. Right.
But it was maybe within a month that they were dictating.
Then it started.
She nailed it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So it's a great transition. So the Christ, the guides talk about the Christ itself. And I had trouble getting. First, I had just the God thing. I wasn't raised particularly religious, but I had to get over that sort of aversion. And then talk about this Christ itself that the guides talk about.
They talk about the Christ as a principle, a principle, the divine spark. The God within is the Christ that can be realized in form. Mm-hmm. Say that it has been done. So people tend to say, the Christ is or was a person, but the living divine spark, they say, is in everybody and is seeking its awakening. Now, I was raised pretty much an atheist. My father was a German Jew who, survived the Holocaust. He was in the Kindertransport. My mom, which I didn't know till the very end of her life, was when she was little, was a praying Mary. She carried a Bible to school. She was, I had no idea about this. And when she was 18 and the people that she was living with, her parents had abandoned her and she was living with two maiden aunts who died, she was then sent to live with her minister who raped her on her 18th birthday. Oh. There was no religion in my household.
No.
Believe me, everybody was so traumatized, I think, by what they had been through. And on one level, I think I was always hungry for a spiritual life, but I would not have been able to name it.
Yeah.
And I thought that God was for stupid people. And, I didn't really, it was just not on the menu for what was available to me as I grew up. That's not to say that there wasn't a hunger. But when I was newly sober, my old therapist, Hurricane Harriet Warfield, she was great. She was a tough old broad. She smoked 120 cigarettes, bleach blonde hair. I really loved her. She was really good to me. And she slid this book across her desk and said, "Get spiritual." The ones who make it get spiritual. And it was an old Emmett Fox book called The Sermon on the Mount, which is the first time I was introduced to that principle. And it's very much in alignment with the guides, although they've now done 14 whole books where they really talk about it. But I had an experience with that book.
Physical, visceral.
It was at that time, I did. It was an opening of the heart center. And this was right before, I think, I studied energy healing or around this. A lot of these things were happening at once. It was a real critical mass for me. The time between 25 and 30, I was opening up. And it's not to say that because things were very bad. I was very poor. My brain would not shut up with the worry. I think I was self-medicating probably from, PTSD or OCD or something. I didn't know. But anyway, I was introduced to the concept then, And then the guides really have instructed me in it in a lot of different ways. Does that mean I'm walking around in it all the day? I don't know, you know. The first experience I had with it was when I was about 29. And it came at a time when I had been really, really, really stuck and feeling very unhappy and like it wasn't going to change. And nobody was giving me any guarantees anymore, Harriet. Nobody knew what to do with me. I was like, oh, here I go. I'm just too screwed up for any of this to work. Mm-hmm. And people used to publish little prayers in the back page of the old Village Voice newspaper. And people would put their answered prayers down. And somebody had published this thing and said, say this prayer for 3 days and it will be answered. And I thought, well, nobody else is giving me any guarantees. So I did it. And on the fourth day, I woke up. My mind was blown. Everything was different.
Really?
The that I had been in was gone. And I had so little money at that point. I mean, I was on the subway, so I must have had enough money to get on the subway. But I remember being on the train and knowing, full on claircognizance, knowing that I was right where I was supposed to be. Mm. And I also knew, which was the more astonishing thing, was that so was everybody else, regardless of what it looked like. Mm. And it was an experience, I would say, of Christ consciousness, if you want to call it something, and this burning in the heart, pulsing flame in the heart, which was shocking to me. No, there's nothing like it. If I could live in that energy all day long, I would. I wish I knew how fully.
I mean, is this the upper room that they describe, or do you think beyond?
I think it probably was the upper room in some ways, or an experience. I think it was the upper room, and they say, is the next octave of vibration. They say what does not exist in the upper room is fear. Mm-hmm. The energy of fear does not play itself out there. Mm-hmm. And there was no fear at that time, but I was having an experience of union, which is really the book that's coming out next. It's about divine union. It was a real experience of union in a way that I never had. And I don't know that I've had it quite as palpably since. Mm-hmm. But I was also coming from a place of feeling like I had an elephant stepping on me. Mm. And the sense of relief of being without that was also just so liberating. And it lasted for 3 days. And then when it ended, I felt terribly, terribly despairing.
I bet.
I thought I'd arrived. I thought this was it.
Yeah.
Maybe it was, But I think now, and what the guides have said was, well, I had a nice preview of what was to come. Mm-hmm. And now I operate in a very different way. It's possible that if I experienced myself now as I was from the perspective of a 29-year-old, I might be having that same experience,
Sure. As you've gradually, because it was this jump.
It was a jump.
Much like
everything else has been in gradation.
Yeah, much like I think my experience has been with psychedelic work. It's that you get that jump. You get that. Yeah. Here's what you can feel like in a body. Now go figure it out in your daily life.
Integrate it. Yeah,
integrate it.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And so that's one catalyst. Doing the prayer. It sounds like maybe a
me at the time. I don't know what today, but it was great.
It was great. Yeah. You talked a little bit about. We were talking earlier about people who talk about discernment, how to ascertain somebody who's authentically channeling. What would you have advice for people on that? Is that anything?
I occasionally, because I actually don't follow other channels. I really don't. And that's not to say that I think it's not interesting, but I don't want what I do to be colored. Mm-hmm. Because occasionally I'll hear all the zeitgeists, but occasionally people show up in my YouTube feed. Okay. And I heard somebody saying, Mother Gaia is telling me that the earth is essentially blah, 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 blah. And it was a lot of jargon. Mm. And it all was like the jargon of the New Age time, the divine feminine, blah, 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 whatever's up. Uh-huh. And I have to say, I think at this point, a fairly good built-in bullshit detector around all this kind of stuff. And that's not to say that there aren't extraordinarily gifted people working. I'm sure there are. And I've heard bits of some of them go, wow, that's the real deal.
Yeah.
I once watched a film of Jane Roberts channeling, she channeled the Seth books.
Yeah, yeah.
And I saw her work and I was like, yep, that's what it feels like.
That's it.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I just started that book last night.
Yeah.
One of her books, yeah.
But for me, and it's funny because for most of my channeling time, I was whispering and repeating everything.
Right.
So it's a real anomaly in the community. Who's this guy that whispers and repeats? It's too hard to listen to. It's only in the last year that they started working directly. And if I understand it, it's because my energy had to be aligned to be able to really hold the magnitude of what they were bringing through in a way that I guess I'm able to do more effectively. I don't know.
Yeah, and interestingly for me, it was because you did it that way that I believed it.
Yeah.
Because it was like, who could fake this shit?
That's somebody else said that. One of the first people who ever talked about me online said, look at this guy, he's working too hard to be faking it.
Yeah.
It was a mile a minute, so fast, whisper, repeat. It was crazy. This is a little easier on my system, I have to say this way. But, it was always a very physical experience for me.
Of the energy.
Yeah, of the energy. And, I don't know if you've seen this, but often when they really step into me, my eyes turn pale blue when they're not. Hazel eyes. So people see this and report it. But a very physical thing. And once in a while I would see somebody and I just, I go, well, it doesn't feel like much is happening, but it's not for me to say. People work in different ways.
Yeah, and people receive.
People receive different, and it's fine. So discernment for me is just, how does it feel? Does it ring true?
Okay.
Does it land true? If something is too couched in the culture of the moment stuff, it feels like it's pop culture. I mean, my guides, I don't think, care about whatever the most recent conspiracy theory is. I think they've got they're teachers. They're here to do something specific. That's not to say that somebody else shouldn't or doesn't channel effectively on that kind of information. It's just not how I do this. The guides have said for a long time, there's a big difference between knowing and thinking. And the personality or the small self thinks and the divine self knows. And when I'm hearing them, I am not really thinking. I'm just trying to keep up with a dictation. And when I do interrupt, that's me thinking, and they know how to manage it now. In the old days, I didn't know, now they'll say Paul is interrupting. I usually just interrupt.
Okay.
And now sometimes they'll actually say Paul was interrupting, and then they'll frame in their own speech what my question was in a way that doesn't derail the lecture.
Yeah.
Because at times I would derail the lecture.
Okay.
All my questions. And when they were doing a book, they have a fairly specific agenda. Book of Knowing and Word, there's actually one chapter that was intended to be something else. And there was a noise in the room that threw me out of it, and I couldn't get back in, and I was panicking. Oh, the book is gone. I can't, because the rule is I can't go back and change anything. Oh, it's all done.
Okay.
And the guide said, let us continue. We will tell you at the end of the dictation whether this is in the book or not. And they did a whole lecture on my fear and my resistance, and then they said, and this is in the book. And I was like, oh, terrific.
This is amazing.
They made it work in their own way, or they chose to keep it. Nobody complained.
Right. Yeah, and it was, for me, it was the energy, because I remember the first workshop I went to see was in Berkeley, and when they did the toning through the whole room, it looked like someone turned on a smoke machine and filled the room with white light. It was incredible, the energy that came through there. And then at the next one, it didn't happen, and I asked them, and they said, well, you were expecting that, and we did this.
Okay. Sounds like that.
Yeah, it sounds like them, right? So Divine Union's coming out end of January?
January 20th, I think.
January 20th. And then the next one's in the works already? The
next one's done. I've turned it into the publisher. I don't have a date yet because I still have to write. It's either like a foreword or an afterword or something.
Okay.
I would do that. And My assumption, I guess, is probably this time next year again.
Yeah, but it's been about annual.
For the most part, it has been, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, doing a book a year for a long time. So that's a publishing decision. I don't have much say on when things happen.
Got it.
I was contracted for this, so I'm assuming they're expecting it and have the paper and the ink somewhere.
Right. Right.
We didn't, oh my God, this is terrible.
Yeah.
But it hasn't happened yet. And it's not my book. If they do, I guess I can't really feel insulted. So
Right.
it is.
And how can people engage with you? What are your waiting list for personal readings is miles long, yes?
Yeah, I'm not doing a lot. I'm not doing them as much as I used to. I just started actually, because I've got to get this memoir that I've started last year written. So that's been put on more of the front burner. But yeah, I do personal readings. I do a lot of events. I do them online every Wednesday evening Eastern time. I do them once a month. I do an intensive of 5-day, 2 hours a day, and 5 days in a row. Those are kind of great. There's ample time for people to ask personal questions there, and we get through a lot of them.
A lot, yeah.
And the live events are where you really can have an experience of working directly with the energy in a room full of other people. So we're live streaming more of those than we had. We just live streamed a 7-day thing in Costa Rica, which was a great experience, from what I'm told from the people online. But I'm all over. So my website is my name. It's Paul Selig, SELIG.com, and there's a calendar there of where I'll be, and I'm throughout the U.S. and I'll be in Europe again this summer. And I hear now I'm going to be going to Australia and New Zealand next year. So
beautiful.
We'll see.
Amazing.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I get dog sitters. I got dogs now.
Oh, right.
Parent.
Yeah, and I'm sorry you lost Chance recently, right?
I lost Chance.
Yeah.
That heartbreak.
Yeah.
Inherited from my mom. She was very old, but she crossed unexpectedly while I was away, I was going to my Costa Rica retreat. So it was a hard homecoming.
Chance did, yeah.
Yeah, and I just adopted this little tiny little thing she was at a puppy mill.
Oh.
To be more loving and sweet.
Lily's okay with her?
Lily's... Yeah, she's okay with it. She's very tolerant. I have to give her a lot of credit. The little one's getting a lot of attention. She's not loving it. But she's letting this little one sleep next to her and do things that she never did with the other dogs. So
nice.
I think she's on board enough.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that.
Yeah. And then you said you have a band of cats that you...
There's 4 that I see. 3 I see every day. Another 4. There's 4 or 5 that come. But yeah, they live at the base of my driveway, so they get fed in the afternoons. So the neighbors feed them too, I understand.
Okay. And you're on the beautiful island of Maui.
I am.
Yeah. Lovely. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I recommend his work to anybody who might be interested in such things, because it's super powerful. It's been life-changing, and I'm appreciative.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Be well.